Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Northwest
has joined the conference.
The Northwest Draft Marine Plan Consultation webinar. Just while people are still joining, I'll do some introductions. My name is Rachel Brown. I am the Marine Planning Programme Manager here at the Marine Management Organisation. I'm joined today by 3 other presenters, and throughout the webinar, which will be about an hour long, you're going to hear from all 4 of us. I have Mel Nichols, a Senior Marine Planner. I have Natalie Jackson, a Marine Planner, and I also have Charlie Gill, who is your Northwest Coastal Planner, some of you may have met. Welcome you all. The purpose of this webinar is to explain to you some of the background of how we've got to a draft Northwest Marine Plan, for those of you that haven't been involved in the process. For those of you that have been involved in the process, to let you know what's happened since we last engaged with you this time last year at Iteration 3, and to give some explanation about how you can make formal representation to the statutory consultation on the Northwest Draft Marine Plan. This webinar is the second in a series of 5 because we have 4 draft marine plans at the moment. We have the Northeast, the Southeast, the Southwest, and obviously the Northwest, which we're talking about today. We have recorded all of these webinars, and you will have heard on the audio that we are recording today, which is why you're all muted. We will be publishing them on our website, so if you are interested in any of our other draft marine plans, and you can't make any of the other webinars, whilst I will say that there'll be a lot of repetition between
joined the conference.
You can watch them online, and you can also see the questions that have been asked by stakeholders within those plan areas. And I'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to give you a general overview of the Marine Management Organisation and what marine planning is and what it covers. And then we're going to talk about the journey so far in the Northwest. And then the bulk of our conversation today and our presentation is going to be on the consultation. What are we consulting on? What are the documents and how do you respond? And then we're going to talk briefly about how to
join the conference.
Because now that we're at a draft plan stage for the Northwest, they are actually a material consideration in decision making. And alongside our work to promote the consultation and to seek representations on the consultation, we are also undertaking implementation training. So we're going to talk about that briefly. And then we're going to briefly just cover the next steps. So what will happen once the consultation closes.
Joined the conference.
A final adopted plan. Don't worry if the audio is cutting out a little bit.
Joined the conference.
Right now, I will be repeating all of this as we go through. This is just the housekeeping stage of the webinar. Okay, so whilst I love talking and could talk to you all day, I'm sure you don't want to hear me talking all day. And so we want the webinar to be interactive, and there are 2 ways that we're going to do this. The first is that we are going to ask you some questions. Now, to do that, we're going to ask you the questions using the WebEx facility where you can see the slides. You should be able to see a screenshot just now in front of you, which shows what one of our polls looks like. So there's a red circle around the poll, and that's the question, and it has 4 options. You just click one of those options, and then you go down to the bottom right and click Submit to respond to the poll. So the poll screen will appear to the right of your webinar screen. If you close it, and when we ask another poll question, it just reappears. You don't have to keep it open. It doesn't have to disrupt your view. So let's try that with a question for you. Let's have a test of that poll feature. So my first question is, how would you rate your current knowledge of marine planning? You have 4 options. So A is no knowledge at all. This is the first event you've attended. B is limited knowledge. You know the basics. You might have attended 1 event in the past. C is good knowledge of marine planning. I've attended more than 1 marine planning event in the past. And D is you have an in-depth knowledge of marine planning and you use it in your day-to-day work. Okay, so the poll is now open. You should see it to the right of your screen. Select one of those options, A, B, C, or D, and then click Submit in the bottom right-hand corner. My webinar manager is anxiously watching the results come in, so we're going to keep that poll open for a little bit longer, another 20 seconds. And what are the scores on the dot? Oh, 10 more seconds. Okay, so we have a majority of people saying that they have a limited knowledge of marine planning. Well, that's fine. The first few sections of our webinar today will hopefully increase your knowledge. I know there's one or two of you on there on the call that have dialed in that have been working with us for a while, so you'll have to bear with us while we go through some of the basics again. Okay, so how else are we going to be interactive? Well, the other way that we're going to be interactive is we want you to be able to ask us questions. And to do that, we're using a facility called Slido. Some of you may have used this before at other conferences and events. And we've got some detailed instructions on the screen right now. So as I have already said, you are all muted on the webinar. But if you want to ask us a question at any point during the webinar, you can type the following link into either your browser or a mobile device, www.sly.do. That'll open the homepage and ask you for an event code. The event code that you need to use is MMONW for Northwest, and then you'll be in a questions screen. You can ask any question you like, although I would prefer it to be about marine planning, the MMO, and what we do. I'm not sure you're all that interested in what I had for tea last night. You type your question out and you hit send. Now, if you see a question on there from one of our other stakeholders that you're interested in and you also want answered, you can actually click the little thumbs up button, the like button, and it upvotes the question. So what we're going to do at the end of the webinar is have 15 minutes where I answer the top 5 questions that have been upvoted. If we have a little bit more time, I might answer some of the others.
Has joined the conference. Has joined the conference.
So as I was saying, at the end, I will be spending 15 minutes answering the top 5 questions. And if we have time, I may answer some of the others. But all of the questions we will take away and we will provide a written answer to go alongside the publication of this webinar recording. What I would say to you all is that all of the comments and questions that you make on Slido can be seen by everyone on the call. So do keep them respectful. And you cannot click the link that you see on the screen right now. You have to type it in. But it works really well on your phone if you want to use that. And we have a question manager just keeping an eye on what's going on with those questions as we go through. And I will be putting up reminders of how to do this between the presentations just so that you remember what the code is and things like that. Okay, well, I think everyone's on the call now and I've done all the housekeeping from this end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Natalie Jackson, who's going to give you an introduction to the Marine Management Organisation. Over to you, Natalie.
Good morning. Thanks, Rachel. Thank you for joining us, everyone. So as Rachel said, my name is Natalie. I'm a marine planner located in Newcastle, and I'll be taking you through some of the background information on the MMO and marine planning for those of you who tick the option where you might know a little bit, but you're not too familiar. And for those of you who know everything already, you can just sit back. So firstly, the MMO is a non-departmental public body established in 2010 through the Marine and Coastal Access Act 2009. Henceforth, I'll be calling it MACA just because it's far easier for me to pronounce at speed. The MMO is sponsored by the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. We license, regulate and plan marine activities in the seas around England so that they're carried out in a sustainable way. Our responsibilities include managing England's fishing quotas,
has joined the conference,
and enforcing marine conservation bylaws, responding to marine emergencies, and of course our functions in relation to marine planning as well as marine licensing. Marine planning is a devolved function in the UK. The Secretary of State for DEFRA is the Marine Planning Authority for England, and functions that are related to marine planning have been delegated to the MMO. The Marine and Fisheries Department and Welsh Government are the authorities for Welsh waters, the Department for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs for Irish waters, and likewise Marine Scotland for Scottish waters. All of these authorities are responsible for producing their own marine plan. Therefore, the MMO work closely with these authorities to make sure that all UK waters are being managed in a cohesive system. Crown dependencies and bordering European countries have been involved in the development of English marine plans. There are a lot of departments that have functions in the marine area, so this graph that you can see now on your screen demonstrates the varied responsibilities of all these organisations and the limit to which their remit extends. As you can see on the top, the MMO covers all responsibilities from the mean high water springs to 200 nautical miles. That means that we have an advisory role covering fisheries enforcement, developing enforcement, surveillance, licensing, planning and marine conservation, as well as regulation. As you can see from the image here, England's marine areas are exceptionally busy with overlapping and sometimes competing environmental, economic and social interests. The marine planning provides the mechanism for which space and resources for a given marine plan area can be strategically optimised for sustainable economic growth while protecting the environment at the same time. It is true to say that marine planning can't offer every party exactly what they want, but it does seek to be equitable, efficient and evidence-based in its outcomes. Marine planning, therefore, ensures that the right activities happen at the right place, at the right time and in the right way, placing sustainable development at the centre of all of its decisions. Marine planning delivers cross-governmental public priorities in the marine area overlaid with stakeholder views, evidence and issues that may be area-specific, such as in the northwest. The marine area consists of the seabed, the water column and the surface, and you can therefore have multiple activities happening at the same time in different dimensions or even at the same location but at different times of the year. Marine plans therefore promote coexistence of activities. The Marine and Coastal Access Act provides domestic legislative basis for marine planning systems. The Marine Policy Statement, which some of you might be familiar with, was adopted in all UK administrations in March 2011. This provides the policy framework for the preparation of all UK marine plans and contains a range of policy objectives and considerations which are used to inform decision-making in the absence of a marine plan. Marine plans translate the Marine Policy Statement into detailed policy and spatial guidance for each marine plan area. Marine plans for all English waters will be adopted by 2021. Section 58, specifically in MACA, says that all public bodies making authorisation and enforcement decisions which affect or might affect the UK marine area must be made in accordance with the Marine Policy Statement and marine plans, or they must state the reason why not. All other decisions must be made with regard to the Marine Policy Statement and marine plans. For example, if a public or local authority reviews a plan.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Natalie. That was a whistle-stop tour of the MMO and marine planning. So do you have any questions about the topics that Natalie covered there, about the MMO, about marine planning, about the legislation that underpins them? As I said at the beginning, the facility that you can use to ask those questions is Slido. The instructions are on the screen right now. So you type in www.sli.do into your browser or mobile device. The code for today's event is MMONW for the Northwest. Just go ahead and type your question and hit send. I'm guessing that we covered that really well because we don't actually have any questions just yet, but obviously we're still open. And then I'm going to ask you a question before I hand over to Charlie. So, before joining this webinar, did you intend to respond to the consultation on the draft Northwest Marine Plan? It's an easy one. So it's yes, no, not sure, or, and we have received some responses already, you've already responded. So you can see the poll is now open on the right-hand side of your screen. You can select one of the four options, yes, no, not sure, already responded, and click submit. Got a few answers coming in. Got 20 seconds left on that poll there. So we'll publish the results now. I'm glad to hear that the majority of you are saying yes, you are planning to respond to the consultation. Well, that makes our job a little bit easier in that we don't have to convince you to respond. What we have to do is give you the tools to be able to respond. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Charlie Gill, who is our Coastal Marine Planner for the Northwest, and she's going to talk about the journey so far for the Draft Northwest Marine Plan.
Thanks, Rachel. So as Rachel said, my name is Charlie and I am based in the Northwest in the Preston office. So I'm now going to give you an overview of the marine planning journey so far. So the MMO is required to develop the marine plans for all of the 11 marine plan areas. So that's the east, the south, the southwest, the southeast, the northeast, and of course the northwest. So the MMO is developing 11 plan documents, with each of those covering the plan area inshore and offshore areas. That's apart from the southeast, which only has an inshore area. The East Marine Plan was adopted in 2014 and the South Marine Plan in 2018. If you have any experience of using either of those plans, the South or the East, then we would really like some of your feedback, and our annual South and East monitoring surveys are live currently until the 28th of Feb. The Northwest, the Northeast, Southeast and Southwest marine plans have been developed concurrently, with the aim of the marine plans being adopted no later than 2021. And we will publish a modification report later in 2020, which will highlight the major changes made following the current consultation. So for the Northwest inshore marine plan area stretches from the Solway Firth border with Scotland down to the River Dee border with Wales, and the offshore marine area from 12 nautical miles out to the exclusive economic zone, and that borders the marine areas of Scotland, Wales and the Isle of Man. It's also important to note that the Northwest Marine Plan is a single document, but it's technically two plans. So there's one for the inshore and one for the offshore marine plan areas, and those have been developed through a single process. On this slide, you can see the marine planning cycle. Some of you may have seen this before. So we've been through 3 iterations, and that's step 2 to 5 on this slide, and we're currently at 6. Which is the public consultation on the draft plan. So the MMO is providing training to decision makers in order to assist with the successful implementation of the marine plan, and some of you may have attended those sessions already. We're also delivering informative presentations to the key stakeholder groups. Also part of the cycle is monitoring, and this is part of a continuous improvement to marine planning, which ensures that the marine plans remain up to date. For that monitoring, we report to Parliament every 3 years on each of the individual plans from the date of the adoption, and DEFRA is responsible for a report every 6 years on all of those adopted plans. The MMO also carries out yearly monitoring surveys with stakeholders, as we're doing in the South and the East currently, to measure how the plans are being used to inform decisions. All of the plans have been developed through an iterative process, and stakeholder engagement is at the heart of that. So the 3 iterations have occurred in the Northwest Marine Plan, and that has now culminated in the statutory public consultation on the draft Marine Plan. You might have attended our Iteration 3 events in the Northwest in Carlisle and New Brighton, or we've also had previous workshops in Liverpool, Whitehaven and Kendal. That has produced various benefits, this iterative working. We've produced early outputs, which help to build on firm foundations. There's lots of feedback opportunities at multiple stages, and it allows us, the MMO, and stakeholders to be responsive to change. So for my final slide, I'm just going to talk through this timeline, which you might have seen before. So as I say, we're now at the public consultation stage, which was stage 6 on the planning wheel we looked at before. And it's at this point that the draft plans have become material consideration. After the consultation, there will be a 24-week period for amendments to the plan. And we aim for the marine plan to be adopted no later than 2021. That's all from me, so I'll pass back to Rachel. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Charlie. Okay, so just another reminder for those of you that perhaps joined a little bit later. Have you got any questions on the journey so far to develop the draft Northwest Marine Plan, particularly those of you that maybe haven't been involved in any of the previous processes or the iterations or any of the workshops that we've held? Feel free to ask some questions. We have actually got quite a few questions popping up now, so there's a few on there on Slido. The instructions are on the screen right in front of you, so you need to type in www.sli.do and enter the event code MMONW, type your question and hit send. You can like other people's questions, and that's been happening a few times, and the 5 questions that have the most likes at the end I will try and answer. Well, I'll try my very best to give you an answer, and the rest of the answers will be posted online. Okay, so the next presenter today is Mel Nichols, and he is going to run through the actual statutory consultation for the draft Northwest Marine Plan. Over to you, Mel.
Thanks, Rachel and Charlie. We've now come to what might be considered the heart of this webinar. I will take you through an overview of the consultation and a walkthrough of the preferred tool for
has left the conference
and explain why it's important that you do submit on this consultation. Consultation on the draft Northwest Marine Plan is a statutory requirement of the Marine Coastal Access Act. We have had annual rounds of engagement. I'm sure many of you have been involved in that, where we developed the iterative components of the Northwest Marine Plan. These were really invaluable and much appreciated. Your input has certainly contributed enormously to the development of this draft Northwest Marine Plan. But now you have the opportunity to make full representations on the whole plan. Especially important because, as has already been said, the publication of the draft plan now means it is a material consideration in decision making. The plans were published on the 14th of January, and the consultation runs for 12 weeks until the 6th of April. What exactly are you being consulted on? Firstly, it's the core marine plan, which includes the vision, objectives, and goals.
Has left the conference.
There's also a draft technical annex, which provides more detail about the policies and their implementation. The third document that's open for consultation is the draft suitability appraisal. This considers the economic, social, and environmental impacts of the draft Northwest Marine Plan, and if there are any negative effects, then provides indication of how they've been avoided or mitigated, as well as identifying the positive opportunities to contribute to sustainability. A fourth document that supports consultation is the Appropriate Assessment Information Report, which is a part of the Habitats Regulations Assessment. It's not itself open for comments, really, but it's certainly an important document that supports the consultation. That provides an assessment of whether the plans will have any adverse effects on the integrity of the European sites and recommend measures to mitigate those effects. I'm pleased to say that the report did indicate that there will be no adverse effects on the integrity of European sites. When you get into the consultation proper, you will be you will see the vision for the Northwest Marine Plan area. It's a 20-year horizon and indicates how we would expect the Northwest Marine Plan areas to look after 20 years of effective implementation of the Marine Plan. The vision will be achieved through objectives. Experience from the East and the South has indicated that it's beneficial for us to adopt the high-level marine objectives from the Marine Policy Statement. But the plan itself does provide then some narrative that relates those high-level objectives to the Northwest area, as shown on the slide there. The technical annex provides, as I said, even more detail about the policies. This one shows an example of one on coexistence. We encourage you to use Citizen Space as the tool online to submit your responses. And the reason being, it ensures that your responses are specific to the section intended by yourselves and also helps enormously our analysis of the responses.
Has joined the conference.
The invitation to this webinar will provide details of the consultation and links to the documents and to the tool for you to make your responses. We suggest that you, first of all, familiarize yourself with the questions. That gives you an overview of the tool and gives you an idea of just how to make your views felt, really. The questions follow the structure of the plan. We also suggest that you review the support documents that I mentioned before, the essay, the HABS-REG assessment, and the Tech Annex. A mantra really is always consider the plan
the conference.
Using all documents when responding to the consultation. You can't just take any one provision in isolation to get a full picture of how the plan plays out and will be implemented. Once you've made your response, you will be sent a receipt and a link to a PDF copy, but I'll come back to that shortly. You also have access to our Explore Marine Plans tool, which details all the data and evidence that we're licensed to share with you. Lastly, we pride ourselves on our engagement and consultation, but we're not too vain to think that we can't improve. So opportunities provided there to provide some feedback on the tool itself, and we strongly suggest that you avail yourselves of the opportunity. When you land on the consultation, you'll find an opening page here. You scroll down, provide some links. The first one being to the draft documents, which can be downloaded, the plan, Tech Annex, essay, and so on. Importantly, we really need you to provide details about yourself. That's to ensure that, of course, all responses are made by real people, and gives us also information which helps us to analyze the responses across all stakeholders. There's also a question about the background to the Northwest Marine Plan, and then into the vision itself and the policies. All the time on the right-hand side, there's a bar there which shows your progress as you answer the various questions. And you'll note that the policies sometimes have a different number of questions. There'll be more for aggregates than for infrastructure, and that's because there are more policies for aggregates. This is an example of the page that you'd see when responding to the infrastructure policy. First up, you're required to check whether you support or not the policy, or do you support it subject to changes. The dialog box below gives you the opportunity to provide more detail about your support or otherwise, and especially if you're ticking the no or the subject to change options, then we really give more detail about why you feel that way, and in fact offer suggestions about how you feel that policy can in fact be improved. You'll see at the bottom there, there's scope to have your response also apply to the other 3 marine plans out of consultation. Many of the policies are common across the plans, and to save you the time and us the analysis, really, the chance there to tick the boxes for the 3 areas if you feel your response equally applies to one of the northeast, southeast, or southwest marine plans. We realise that the marine plan documents, the consultation, the questions, there's quite a lot to do, and you may not have the opportunity to complete your response in one sitting. You have the opportunity, as shown on the bottom there, to save your ongoing response and to come back to it later to complete it. Just bear in mind that it's never submitted, though, until you finally press the submit button at the end. And do make sure that you do that before the 6th of April when the consultation closes. All the time, you have a helpful guidance drop-down box there, which gives you more information about the particular page that you're on in regard to the questions being asked, and hints and tips about the various documents and sections that might help you with your response. So, after this journey the plan has been on, and the consultation, the plan really comes into its own when it's being implemented. What does implementation mean? Basically, it means using the marine plan as a management tool to make decisions relating to the marine environment as part of a plan-led process using the appropriate marine policy documents, and that includes the marine plan and, of course, the marine policy statement. I might just point out here before I change the slide that Slido will be closing shortly, so do make your questions while you can. So these decisions then that are taken, they're principally by authorities, and that includes the MMO, ministers of the Crown, local planning authorities, ports, and other public bodies. The Act requires such authorities to make decisions that are of an authorization or enforcement nature in accordance with the marine plan and the marine policy statement. If the authority concerned has chosen to not make a decision in accordance with the marine plan, then they are required to give their reasons why. The second sort of decision, which is not authorization and enforcement, but still affects in this case, the Northwest Marine Plan areas. The authority then must have regard to the marine plan and the marine policy statement when making that decision. As an aside, I might point out here that there are national significant infrastructure projects which are of such standing, and that includes the likes of an offshore wind farm of 100+ megawatts. They have their own national policy statement, which to a degree takes precedence over the MPS and the marine plan. For those, the authority concerned will be making a decision in having regard to the marine plan. We won't be leaving you alone with this implementation. To that end, we've set up an implementation training session, which will aid the implementation of marine plans, principally aimed at decision makers, the local authorities, port authorities, and if you have not already booked a training session, then do so. And principally, you can do that through contacting Charlie, your local marine planner, or indeed, you could just contact their planning@marinemanagement.uk mailbox, or in fact, talk to any marine planner known to you, really, and we'll point you in the right direction. So finally, to summarize, really, we would maintain there are many benefits to responding to consultation. It raises awareness of the direction that the Northwest Marine Plan will take in regard to solving the build development of the area. We need your knowledge to ensure that the marine plans are locally specific, and that will aid the implementation of the marine plan and all its policies. So it's really important we get a balance of views across all sectors. Having your say will ensure that is achieved. I think I can now say that Slido is about to close.
It is about to close, yes, Mel. We have 4 really good questions on there. If you are thinking you might have an additional question, please do submit it now, or like the ones that are there. Otherwise, we have the 4 that I will be answering. Thanks very much, Mel. That's a lot of ground to cover: the consultation and citizen space and implementation training. That's an overview of everything that's going on for us right now. We're going to ask you a final question. So for the 1 or 2 of you that weren't quite sure about whether you were going to submit a formal representation to our statutory consultation, we're going to ask you one last time, now that you've heard what we've had to say, do you intend to respond to the consultation? So the poll is now open on your screen. You've got 4 options, the same as before: yes, no, not sure, or you've already responded, which would be amazing if you've managed to do that in the 45 minutes that we've been talking. And that's just really for us to understand whether we've been at all effective in giving you the information that you need to respond to the consultation. So the poll is just about got 15 seconds left before it closes. Pick one of those choices, A, B, C, or D, and click submit at the bottom right. And the poll is now closed. I'm looking at my webinar manager, and he's flashing the yes card to me. So you're all planning to respond. That's fantastic news. So just before I get to question and answers, I'm going to just do the conclusion and next steps to the speaking part of the presentation of the webinar. Please do consider submitting a response if you're at all on the fence. We've worked really hard to make the government consultation tool as user-friendly as possible, taking on board all of the feedback that we possibly could from previous engagement periods. If you are a decision maker, please do start considering the draft Northwest Marine Plan in your decision-making processes. I do have a question on the board about that, so I'll come to that in a moment. If you are not already subscribed to our newsletter, please do send us an email to planning@marinemanagement.org.uk to subscribe to our newsletter, which gives you all of the updates on marine planning progress across all of the marine plan areas in England. And do also start using the new Explore Marine Plans online service. The URL is there for you on the screen. Explore Marine Plans is a digital tool that allows you to interrogate marine plan information and the data that sits behind the policies. Those of you that perhaps have been involved in earlier iterations of development of the draft Northwest Marine Plan may have been familiar with the Marine Information System, and some of you may even have been involved in the development of Explore Marine Plans. But Explore Marine Plans is replacing the Marine Information System now. Over the next couple of months of winter, as we move into spring, the marine planning team will be, as Mel said, providing implementation training sessions to organisations that will be using the draft Northwest Marine Plan in their decision making. If your organisation would like to make use of this training opportunity, please do contact Charlie. Her details will be shared at the end if you don't have them already, and she will be happy to arrange a suitable training session for you. Okay, on to the question and answers. Well, you were very kind to me today, everyone. I only have 4, I believe, but the top voted question was, I want to canvass my organisation and submit a single response covering multiple people. What is the best way to do this? Good question. I can't necessarily dictate how you manage your internal organisation management, but you can download the plan documents from Citizen Space to circulate around for multiple people to look at different sections. You can also submit your response from Citizen Space as an organisation rather than as an individual. So my suggestion would be that you collate your response and then enter that onto Citizen Space. You can save and come back to that later if you don't want to do it all in one sitting, but that would be the best approach from my point of view. I'm not quite sure how your individual organisations are set up to do that. And if you are a national organisation and you're wanting to make the same response across multiple plan areas, as Mel was saying in Citizen Space, there is actually a box that you can click, so you just have to enter the response once to a particular policy, and that can apply to all of the 4 draft marine plans that are currently out to consultation. So that does save some of the work for those of you that are maybe representing a national organisation. Okay. So the second question is there an option to submit a response by any means other than Citizen Space? So we get asked this question quite a lot. Citizen Space is a government consultation tool, and when we are at statutory consultation phase, which we are right now, it is the preferred method for receiving responses. If you are having accessibility issues, or if you have particular requirements that require an alternative response, you can get in touch with us to discuss that. However, we are urging people to use Citizen Space because not only does that allow us to actually see your response as you intended it, it allows us to apply any amendments or changes to policies correctly. When we receive letters and rather detailed responses that are wide-ranging, we can't always apply those changes in the way that they're intended, and it makes the amendment process quite tricky for us because we're not truly representing your views in that process. There is a section in the Citizen Space questionnaire that isn't specifically about policies or objectives or visions, and it asks for any other comments. And we would urge those of you that have wide-ranging comments that are not specific to any particular section to put them in that place, and then we can use them appropriately in the amendments process. Okay, my third question is, where can I provide comments and feedback on Explore Marine Plans? So Explore Marine Plans is our new digital service, as I have already mentioned. It's in public beta, which means that it's continuously being improved. And we are seeking feedback from everyone who uses Explore Marine Plans, and it can be submitted to us via the planning mailbox. So we are not consulting on Explore Marine Plans. It is not part of this consultation. There is no deadline for providing feedback on the service, and there's no deadline on when we will stop continuously improving. It's a user-based service, and so any feedback about either the utility of the service or the data that underpins it, if you've got new data, please submit that to us via the planning mailbox, which is planning@marinemanagement.org.uk. Okay, so there's one final question, which is about decision making, and that is, how do we know how much weight to give marine plan policies when determining planning applications prior to the adoption of the marine plan? So that's a good question. At draft plan stage, the marine plans themselves are what are known as material considerations. There's some really good guidance on gov.uk that's developed for local planning authorities that explains what a material consideration is and how it should be used in decision making. Ultimately, though, provided that regard is had to all material considerations within a decision, it is for the decision maker themselves to decide what weight is given to the material consideration in each case, which isn't super helpful for you wanting a specific answer. But if you have a particular question, the person that asked that, and you want to get in touch with us via the planning mailbox.
Has left the conference.
So ultimately, marine plans are implemented by all decision makers in the marine environment, not just the MMO, and it is up to the individual decision maker to determine how much weight to give to them as a material consideration at draft plan stage. Okay, so that's the end of the questions. I see that one came in right at the end, but we are out of time now. So what I will do is take that last question that's come in and provide a written response alongside the recording of this webinar on gov.uk. Okay, so let's wrap up. Thank you all for being patient with us and listening to us explain to you, and also for the questions that you've asked. In terms of conclusion and the next steps, what's coming from
Has
Marine
left
Plan?
the conference.
The consultation closes on Monday the 6th of April 2020. Following the consultation, within 12 weeks, we will be producing a consultation summary. This explains figures around engagement, number of responses, and the broad brush direction of travel that we'll be making to those responses. We do, however, have a 24-week amendment period here in the MMO, so we'll be spending most of our summer holidays making amends to the draft Northwest Marine Plan, alongside the other 3 draft plans. And alongside the amendments, we'll be completing the sustainability appraisal, the habitat regulations assessment, and the monitoring approach for the draft plans. Once those are completed, we'll be submitting those to government for cross-governmental rights round and formal sign-off by the Secretary of State for DEFRA ahead of adoption, which is planned to be very late this year or early next year. That depends on ministerial priorities. Once we adopt the plans, a full summary of all of the responses and changes that have been made as a result of the consultation on the draft Northwest Plan will be published. This is known as a modifications report. That sits alongside the adopted plan, so you can see very clearly how comments were taken into account. And then we've got to get on with the business of implementing and monitoring all of our plans, but that's a little bit far in the future for us to discuss today. So I will end the webinar with this slide, which gives you our coastal marine planners. We recognise that everyone within each plan area are the experts on their plan area, and so we have coastal planners based around the coast of England, and we've put all of them on this slide for you there because we recognise that some of you that are based in the Northwest or are dialing into this webinar may also have interest in other plan areas or colleagues in other plan areas who you might want to put in touch. Charlie, as you heard today, is your coastal marine planner for the Northwest. Do get in touch with her, and if you can't get in touch with Charlie, please do send us an email to the planning mailbox, which is at the top there, planning@marinemanagement.org.uk, and we'll be happy to answer any and all of your questions. And from me and my team, I just want to say thank you to all of you for dialing in today. I hope you found this useful, and we will be sending an email round to the attendee list to let you know that we've published this webinar online. But for now, that's all from us. So thanks again.
Collins, Liverpool City Council.
Has left the conference.
Charlotte Aspinall,